Hello and welcome to another episode of Bad Decision Works. In this episode I'm going to show you all about the 240 project, the stage of the Rollcage build, but also all the side projects and scope creep I've got. I'm also going to finally tell you guys about the plans that I have for the Tjorven drag race car. Yes, it's going to be a drag race car. And what I'm going to do with the lifted Volvo 240. So the reason it took a while for me to create a new video, it's been since December, so more than a month since the last video, is that I kind of started and planning like, okay, I'm going to show step by step how to build a roll cage, and then each of the steps takes days sometimes, or even weeks to complete, and then it's one time you forget to film a part, you can't redo it because it's a fucking roll cage. You can't like cut it open and re-weld it to make a new shot. So at one point I kind of like decided, let's not try to make this a tutorial video, but just give an update somewhere like halfway through or at least during the project, and that's what's happening now. So. Sadly, this is not going to be a cinematic masterpiece as I've been like trying to do before, which is also kind of like a little bit weird, but also fun to do. But that made like the bar, I set the bar just way too high for myself, and that made it a lot more stressful and a lot more time consuming to create videos. And in the end, I just want to give updates about what I'm doing and the stuff that I'm building. And I think that's the stuff that you're interested in, and not like creating cinematic masterpieces with fancy editing skills and stuff like that. So I'm trying to like find my way in this YouTube thing now. Anyway, back to the roll cage. So the roll cage is built. It's a Matthias Ledin prefabricated roll cage, and prefabricated means that was not completely built. So it's not like, okay, I just put this bar in place, I just weld it and that's it. I like this bar, for example, has a little bit of a bend in it, and this bend was pre-made and it was kind of like roughly cut to size, and there was one image and some pictures on Facebook from previous builds, and that's it. Like, just like, here's a big bundle of steel and just have fun with it. So I had to cut everything to length, have to like notch all the tubes, make sure that all the angles are correct, which is actually the hard part. And well, I would be lying if this was a one shot and a home run. That's not true. I messed up two of the bars in the back. I messed up these so-called Toyota bars, and yeah, it's been a little bit hard, but it's worked in the end, and it was kind of like a fun project actually to do. So the biggest issue I had with building this roll cage was not the actual welding or cutting or grinding or whatever. The mistake I made was like, I cut holes in the floor to drop down the roll cage to make sure that I can paint it on top, so it's rust protected, then lift it up back in place, weld it to the floor, so all the spots that I can't reach afterwards, which are touching the ceiling of the car or the roof of the car, they are painted. But then I made the big mistake that I painted the car or the roll cage with a brush, which doesn't give a very nice finish, but that's something I could actually live with some minor fix-ups and blah blah blah. But with a brush, but also when the temperature was too low. It was outside, it was minus 20, and inside my heating system couldn't keep up and was around 5, 6, 7 degrees Celsius inside. And that's way too cold for paint to dry properly. Didn't notice. Next day, on my plan was to just paint a second coat, third coat, fourth coat. And then after a while I started sanding a little bit, and then I noticed that the paint was not dry actually. And so what happened, so the first layer I did quite thick, and it didn't dry before I did the second layer. And the second layer I made a thin layer, which I also thinned down with paint thinner, and that did dry. So like the first layer wasn't dry, and then the layers on top did dry, because then the temperature rows already, and also since it was a thin layer, it had more opportunity to dry. So this base layer was never going to dry properly, and that caused a lot of problems. And then at one point I decided to grind off all the paint that I put on. I painted the whole roll cage up until like this high because I had to weld these bars afterwards. So like most of it was already painted. And yeah, that took me literally 1.5 weeks to get to this point where all the failed paint job is off, and I just have to sand a little bit more to reach the points that I couldn't reach with the wire brush on my drill machine thing. So yeah, I'm now at the point that roll cage can be painted, and I decided to do this properly now because I messed up the first time. So then I just default to the most elaborate version I can think, and that's painting it with a paint gun. And that's why there is already a lot of tape and paper and plastic and stuff on the car, because I already started taping it up. I'm quite far. I just have to do a little bit more of sanding to get everything prepped properly and then clean it. And then I can start properly painting everything. So the car will be red as it is now on the inside, but with all the grinding going on, I had to redo the inside, and the roll cage is going to be white because I think that looks nice with the red interior and the white outside. What also happened is that I, as most people do, I guess, underestimated how much rust there would be underneath everything. So to build the roll cage, I took out the dashboard, all the leftover stuff that was in the car for carpets or sound deadening or whatever you can find in a car that's not absolutely necessary. I took out. That's all these shiny parts. That's where sound deadening was, and also where a lot of rust was. So there was a rust patch over here, over there, underneath this seat mount plate, whatever. There was an old rust repair there that was super ugly, but I decided not to take that out and just make it a little bit more pretty. Same over there. There was rust around these edges. There was rust around there. Still not bad for a 240. But I never knew my car was that bad. So I had to do a lot of rust repairs. But that left us with a little bit of a mess to clean up and to paint. So when I decided to spray paint the car, I was first thinking about doing it with spray cans, but I kind of then remembered that I had a paint gun, an actual paint gun. Its brand is Eminent. I have no idea if it's something serious. I bought it secondhand like 15 years ago, I think. Like, oh, this will come in handy someday. And I never used it, as you do with a lot of tools that you buy that you think that might come in handy. But at least I've got it. I tried it on a few parts, which I can't find right now. It doesn't matter. And it works. I cleaned everything. I greased up the pin and everything, and it works. So this is what I'm going to use. I did need a dehumidifier. I don't know if that's the word. For my compressor, which is down there, and also a valve to lower the pressure, because it's a 8-bar compressor, and for painting, apparently according to the internet, you need 2 to 2.5 bars, and I might even turn that down just to be able to work a little bit slower. What is coming in is a paint overalls film to like cover the car and everything, and inside the workshop to prevent overspray from getting everywhere. Then I'm going to use this red oxide primer that I have on all the surfaces, so everything will be brown reddish at first. I think having a good primer is, especially with this not very professional setup what I'm doing, a primer is more important than ever. And then I am going to paint the roll cage first in white that I have. This is like well, the label came off a little bit, but this is like professional grade industrial paint. It is a one component still, but it's very durable. I've used this many times before. It's 9106 roll color. Yeah, that's so first the roll cage. Then I'm going to, and when that's dry, then I'm going to tape off the roll cage, And then I'm going to paint the rest of the interior in Roll 3003, which is a color that's very, very close to the original Volvo 601 paint color. And a can like this is about 30-40 euros, back in Holland at least. It's way cheaper than actual car paint, and this is very durable. And I'm just going to use paint thinner, regular paint thinner, to thin everything down so it works in a paint gun. So that's the paint plan. Time to talk about the side projects and the scope creep that I have. And scope creep, that's something I think I'm going to dedicate a separate video to that, because that's the hardest part in building cars. It's like, oh, I'm going to build a roll cage and then also fix all the rust things and do this and that and all up, and then you end up 2 years down the road and the car's still on jack stand. So that's something that I don't want to have happen, but also there is always a little bit of scope creep. So scope creep in this project is the Wireloom, I'll get to that later, but also the doors. I stripped them before, took out all the door locking mechanisms and everything that you don't need in rear doors, because especially with the roll cage, there's nobody going to sit in the back seat, and I don't want to delete the doors completely. So I still have the doors. They weigh about 20 kilos, I think, before, with already a lot of strip, but before, and also with plastic windows. But now they weigh only like 10 kilos. And that's mostly because of everything being gone. So there's these steel bars that go inside the door like this. They are crash side impact protection crash system. But since I have roll cage now, I don't need this anymore. And well, you can maybe see it on the camera, but it's quite a thick and heavy piece of steel. That's gone now in all the doors. And I cut some holes in the bottom and in the sides, as you can see, my shirt size shining through, which is nice. And this door, it's still heavy because it's still thick Volvo steel, but yeah, at least it's a little bit lighter now. So yeah, and with doing this, I found that I had these MK Motorsport aluminum door panels before, because I don't like it when you look inside this door so much. So, but these aluminum door panels are just aluminum colored, and I thought about painting them same color as the car, but then still they would be very big flat surfaces in one color. So I decided to make a vinyl sticker for this, and I mounted one in the front door, and this is one of the doors that I made. It's still just aluminum plate, just to cover all the non-existing interior in the door, but then with a print of a 240, like an original 240 door, with the card holder for a book, an important book that I don't want to miss when I go to the track. 16 centimeter speakers. Normal cars can't handle this. It's 10 centimeters max. I've got 16 centimeter speakers in my Volvo. So yeah, and tools, obviously, since you can't go anywhere without tools when owning a 240. So yeah, kind of like it. And then the biggest side project. So I decided to remove the Wireloom by pulling it back into the engine bay through the firewall, because it's fed through the firewall where your steering wheel is. And then when it was laying here, I was like, maybe if I remove all the tape and everything that's around the original Wireloom, then I can remove all the wires that I don't need. And I did that already, so it's already slimmed down a lot. But there is still a lot of stuff like this. This is some kind of like relay or whatever that lights a warning light on your dashboard when one of your bulbs fail. But since it's a race car, it's not that important. But removing this is quite, well, it's not hard, but it's quite cumbersome. So then I decided last week that I'm not going to use the actual original Wireloom, but I'm just going to create a new Wireloom based on these wiring, because the wires in the 240 are very, most of them at least, are very good, and they last a long time, so there's no need in buying new wiring. But I'm just going to slim down everything to the absolute minimum. The original switch ignition, everything's going to be a few buttons on a small console in the middle. That's going to take a long time. This is probably not going to do this in a video, because that would be a super boring video of me just messing around with all these wires. But I decided to do this because just to make life easier in the future. So this is going to be the big side project and the biggest scope creep, but I think in the end will be worthwhile. And then the third and hopefully final side project and scope creep is the original headlights. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to do this, but knowing myself and knowing that I have the plan, then I'll probably build it. But the plan now is, like, the thing that I hate about these headlights is that, like, they're quite heavy. They're made of glass, so if I accidentally have a little bit of a run-in with somebody else on the track or something else on the track, then if this glass breaks, then there's glass on the track. Nobody wants that. So what I want to do is I want to 3D scan these, or at least measure them, or do something, so I can create a 3D designed insert that goes in here, so the headlights will be removed. Create a 3D printed insert that's the same mesh, kind of like as the grill, the same shape, so it kind of like looks like there's 3 grills instead of 1 and 2 headlights. And then I want to build in this corner, I want to have an opening in this mesh where a small projector headlight pokes through. And it will transform the look of the car quite heavily when these glass E-coat headlights are replaced with plastic grills. And also air intake to the open air filter, which is nice. Cold air intake. It's more speed, more power.
So here it is, Tjorven. It's still on the stand that I made a while ago, the dolly, and it's just waiting for me to get started. It's completely stripped now. There is no wire looms, no unnecessary parts anymore in the car, and yeah, just ready to do something with. So the plan for this car is to use the power plant from this car as a drivetrain, and to be more precise, this is a Volvo S60 T5 with some modifications. You can already clearly see bigger intercooler. There is a bigger turbo down there somewhere, a 20T turbo to be more precise. Bigger injectors, the green giants, I think people call them. Not sure about that, but this car roughly makes around 350/400 horsepower. It's custom mapped to this setup. Yeah, so this is the car. It's running fine. I test fitted the Ferrari wheels, so the Ferrari wheels are going to be on the Tjorven, and this engine is going to be in the back of the Tjorven. So what my plan is to take the complete subframe where the engine is mounted to, complete with the support arms, suspension, everything, and make it fit inside the back of the Tjorven. I am going to tell more in detail about this project later on, but there is one main consideration, and I'm going back inside because it's nice and warm outside, like 5 degrees, but it's better inside, so bear with me.
So the issue with the Tjorven that I run into now in this preparation process, where I kind of like try to think about all the options that I have and all the technical difficulties that I will run into, is like making this bigger picture. So the thing with this Tjorven project is that I don't know where I will be on a scale of perfectionism. So if you've got on this scale, halfway down this scale, you've got like Grindart Plumbing. They build things that are built well, they work well, and they build them fast. And they're not like cutting corners or anything. They properly build things, but it's not the prettiest thing in the world, except for this motorcycle that Ethan is now building. But that's like most of the things they build it quickly because it just has to work. And on the other hand, you have, on the other end of the scale, you have people like Inheritance Machining or Stansworks with his Ferrari. It's like this Ferrari that's like, he goes the extra mile with everything. So this is like the literal definition of perfection. So not to downplay Groundhog, so that's why I say they're like halfway down the scale with some projects, but like, where am I going to be on this scale? That like my instinct says to like be on the end of the scale and like try to compete with Stansworks, for example. But he is like, he has gazillions of sponsors, well, not maybe gazillions, but he has a lot of financial backing, and I have absolutely none. And also I have a full-time job, and this full-time job pays for everything that you see around here, which is nice, but also it takes like 40 plus hours a week. And that's a little bit hard to combine. So building something like super nice and super fancy in the time frame that I have with the money I have means that I'll be building for years to come. And if there's something that I don't like is, and people like watching probably don't like, is that it's things that takes ages and it's very slow in progress. I set this goal for myself to make it run and work and everything within a year. But that's, I think now, not realistic, and not to combine with a new house, a new life in Sweden and everything. So I'm thinking about like winging it a little bit. So on a scale of like 3D scanning and completely designing a tube frame chassis to like building something that's probably just over-engineered and just build it here instead of on the computer. I think the last one is a little bit quicker and more fun to watch. Yeah, I'm not sure. What do you guys think? What would you do? One thing to say, safety comes first. It is going to be the drag race car, so I want to be competing in drag races. So safety is I'm not going to leave out a roll cage or anything, and I'm not going to use inferior materials, obviously. But between like CAD designing everything and designing it with paper and just an angle grinder, it's a skill. So I'm curious to see what you guys think. Please leave a comment. How would you go about with this project? And the last thing I want to talk about is the lifted Volvo 240. It hasn't been in this channel much, but people that follow me for a longer time know that I have this lifted Volvo 240. And it has been one of the most the cars that was the most fun to own, to drive, to build on, to do everything with, because it's super reliable, stock engine, stock gearbox, but it's so much fun. You get so much attention with the car and the state that it is in right now. It's people giving thumbs up everywhere you go, and people asking you things. The most asked question is it a four-wheel drive? No, it's not a four-wheel drive, but it has this kind of like limited slip differential and blah blah. So it actually performs quite well. Not in actual terrain, but in like mud roads and like back roads and stuff that we have around here in Sweden a lot in the countryside. But I think I decided to sell the car. It has been in my life for a few years now. It has been a big thing in bad decisions, in growing bad decisions in my Instagram life, so to say, and also in growing the business back when Bad Decision Works was a business, and when I sold these lift kits for cars like this. And but it's standing still mostly here, and now with the Tjorven arriving and having a third project, I thought that it might be a little bit too much to have 3 projects and a full-time job and a house to maintain and to build and do things with. So it's not fun to make this decision, and I've been thinking about it for a long time, but I kind of decided that I'm going to sell it. If I get a decent price for it that will contribute to the Tjorven project. Still doubting it, but as soon as I release this video, I think there's no way back. But if you're interested, please reach out to me, make me an offer. It's not a €500 car. It's been maintained very well. There is one issue now, that the exhaust exploded a while ago. No idea what happened there, but the exhaust exploded. A new one's already there on the counter. So as soon as this car goes out, then the lifted Volvo will be in, replace the exhaust, part that's broken, and then check everything, make sure everything's good to go, and then I'll sell the car. So it will take a few more weeks or months, but in spring it should be gone. Yeah, sad.